It is time to begin. We're looking today at 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. And this is talking about apostasy. One of the things that we see in the writings of 1st and 2nd Thessalonians is the fact of Paul spending time trying to correct some of the things that the Thessalonian brethren had as far as the second coming of Christ. And basically, when you look at the things that he deals with here, it's the same thing that people deal with today. You got people that are constantly coming up and saying, the end of the world is coming on this particular date or that particular date, and then when that date comes by, we made a little miscalculation, so therefore we're going to have to change it. Now, the simple fact is they need to forget about trying to pinpoint the date, because Jesus says that nobody knows except God when that day is going to come. And when those who are trying to project that are using their pinpoint analysis, so to speak, they're showing their ignorance, really, because God has said that nobody knows except God himself when that time is going to come. We're going to be looking at 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 1 through 12. It says, "Now, brethren, concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together to him, we ask you not to be so soon shaken in mind or troubled either by the Spirit or by word or by letter, as if from us, as though the day of Christ has come. Let no one deceive you by any means, for the day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or that is worship, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Do not you remember that when I was still with you, I told you these things, and now you know what is restraining, that he may be revealed in his own time. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains will do so until he is taken out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, and with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all unrighteousness, deception among those who perish, because they have not received the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this reason, God will send them strong delusions, that they should believe the lie, that they all may be condemned, who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. When we look at this particular lesson, which deals with apostasy, and one of the things that we need to understand is there is a difference in ungodliness and unrighteousness. Ungodliness is totally going against the grain of God, and we'll find that this is even worse than being unrighteous. Unrighteousness comes at spurts, but ungodliness is something that has been predetermined. When the Lord Jesus comes again, what will take place? Has caused confusion among believers from the earliest preaching of the gospel. And so one of the things that we saw in the study of 1 Thessalonians was the fact that there were those who were concerned about what about these people who have died? What's going to happen to them in the resurrection? And basically we came to the understanding that there was no preference for those who were living or those who died. The ones that die in the Lord will find that the Lord will bring with him, and the ones that are left and who are righteous will be changed in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye, and we will meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. One of the things that the Thessalonians were concerned about, there were some during the lifetime of Paul who believed that the resurrection, which is apparently a general resurrection of the Lord, had already returned, already occurred. This is 2 Timothy 2, verse 18. They believed that it was a spiritual, non-literal event, like that which takes place when a sinner is baptized into Christ, and where the saved one spiritually rises from the dead and comes up a new creature. Some at Thessalonica had been shaken in mind. Paul said because someone had taught them the day of the Lord had already come. And basically what he's going to say is the day of the Lord, when it comes, everybody's going to know it. There's not going to be any secrets. There's not going to be any mistakes. But everybody will know when that takes place. So the apostle was at pains to show them they were mistaken. They were prepared for his. They were to be prepared for his coming whenever he chose to come. And one of the things that we studied about this is the fact that he talks about the second coming in order to help people prepare for that event, and not to be so frantic in nature that we're trying to figure out when that time's going to be. It doesn't matter when it comes. We need to be ready, and he tells us to watch. And he uses the analogy of the thief in the night, and he basically says, had the owner known that the thief was coming, he would have watched, and he would have been prepared. One of the things you find in the Old Testament, particularly on the cities which had walls around them, and they also had points in that wall in which people were put there to watch and to notify the officials if anything unusual was about to happen. And so we see that one of the things that he talks about is being watchful, anticipate the future, and when that future time comes, and we don't know precisely when that's going to happen. But the important thing is to be ready when that time comes. To dispel the notion that the Lord had already returned, Paul told his readers some things that would happen before the day dawned. The problems of interpreting arise because modern Christians are not as familiar with the happenings on the world stage as were the apostles' first readers. And so he brings into play the things that were happening. And one of the things that you see is that one of the Caesars of Rome, and this happened about AD 40, which was just a few years after the crucifixion of Jesus, that he wanted to set up a statue of himself in the temple. And so you see one of the things that was very prevalent during the time of Christ in the years that followed was the fact of emperor worship. And you had some of the emperors were very hostile toward Christianity, and some were not so much. So anyway, we'll find that one of the things that Paul was dealing with was the emperor that set himself up as God, and you can't do that. We'll find that a general apostasy, Paul said, would take place before the Lord returns. He talks about a man of sin, a son of perdition, would be revealed, and the Thessalonian Christians had not seen such a person, so it follows that the Lord had not returned. So there were times when evil was very strong. There was times when evil was not as strong as it was at other times, and so as a result, and you see this in and out of the different Caesars. Some were more hospitable toward Christianity than others, and some were very hard bent against Christianity. The Thessalonian Christians had not seen this person, and therefore the Lord had not returned. And Paul makes it very evident that if they had not seen that son of perdition, and they had not seen any return there, that the second coming had not happened. And the apostle said to the Thessalonians, "Do you not remember that when I was with you, I told you these things?" 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 5. Had the modern reader been present when the apostle told the Thessalonians these things, perhaps they would be less befuddled as they try to interpret what he says. And when you can go to commentaries and you'll see all kinds, they're all over the page when it comes to their explanation of these verses here. And but basically, Paul says, you need to be watchful. And I tell you these things that you might prepare yourself when that time comes, that you will be ready to meet the Lord. Do we have any questions or comments on introduction? Yes.
It seems like Paul is telling them and us how to recognize the end times, but obviously that's not the case. Do you think we're in the day of our Lord now? And is there any difference between that and the phrase end time?
We're in the last days. And Jesus made that clear when he says, I'll be with you even to the end of the age. But as far as trying to say this particular idea and that particular idea and this event and that event is a determination of when the end will come. Just remember that he says that the second coming of Christ will be like a thief in the night. In other words, you're not going to know. But when that event happens, you will know. It won't be any secret. It won't be off in the side events, but it'll be the main event. And we need to recognize that is the thing. But he says that there will be some events that will happen, and some of these times of evil will be strong. Some of the times will be not so strong, and basically that. And we've had people over the years that have tried to. They see this son of patrician, this man of sin, and they want to equate him to Napoleon or Adolf Hitler or some other person. You got people who are going to be evil, and our world has been pretty evil over the last few years. People have gone against the grain of what is good and right, and so as a result, a lot of people want to pinpoint and say this person is filling the bill. Well, Solomon says there's no new thing under the sun. What man has done, he continues to do, and what has gone around will come around, and so we need to recognize this very fact. Does that help you any, Jim? Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, preparing for the end. And this idea of preparing is the key word here. The future of the church at Thessalonica was important to what the church was to be in the Gentile world. Thessalonica was one of the largest cities in the Roman province of Macedonia. It was the seat of Roman government. The chief Roman authorities for the province were there. The Roman proconsul maintained headquarters there. And in addition, it was an important city economically. Had a very broad harbor. Its hitherlands grew produce of many varieties. The city was fertile and well drained, and continued to be an exporter to some of these cities to the south. And so as we look at this, we'll find that Thessalonica was a very important strategical city to Rome as well as to the economic world. The church at Thessalonica appears to have been made up chiefly of ethnic Greeks who in pre-Pauline days had become attached to the synagogue, as we see in Acts 17:4. The poorest of people still maintained a majority. And some converts of Christ may have wielded considerable wealth economic influence, and even religious power. And yet, as Paul says, still wealth has never been a shield against being naive or ignorant. And apparently some of these people who were in this category were the ones that were having the problem as far as trying to ascertain what the second coming of Jesus was going to be like. They tried to explain what was going to happen and things like this. We only can give what God has said and not what man thinks about it. And for man to speculate is for man to waste his time in trying to determine what is going to happen. We'll find that some of the more sophisticated Christians appear to have been among those troubled by reports and letters and words claiming to be Paul and suggested the day of the Lord had already come. And so Paul, as he writes to them, he says, you don't need to rely on reports or letters or words that have been attributed to me, but you need to come to the understanding of what is involved here. And so Paul claiming to be letters claiming to be from Paul, and suggests that the day of the Lord had already come, and he says it's not going to come in a quiet way. It's not going to be a secret. The coming of the Lord is going to be in the day and in the night. This old world is part day and part night. And whenever the Lord comes, part of this world will be in darkness and part will be in light. But everybody will know what the event is all about. And so when the apostle tried to head off reports that the day of the Lord was an event coming and going without notice, and he says you're not going to have that. It's going to be noticeable to all mankind. It's going to be a day of happiness, and it's going to be a day of sorrow. It's going to be happy for those who have lived faithfully to God, and it's going to be a sad day for those who have not lived according to the way that God has suggested that they live. The day of the Lord will not come until there is a general falling away, apostasy. The apostle apparently gave sufficient details, description of the day so that no one would fail to recognize it, and the falling away would be preceded by the revelation of a leader, a man of sin, a son of perdition. He would assume the position of the religious authority, sitting as God in the temple of God. And so readers in the Bible should understand that when translators write God with uppercase letters, is no guarantee that the God of Moses and Jesus is the subject. And so when you see that that authority sitting in the temple of God, and as the one with authority, then that God is not necessarily the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But he is the God that has taken on himself to do the will of Satan. And so Paul warned Paul warned of a Greek man who would claim a place in a Greek temple. Greek readers would have understood what Paul meant, the son of perdition, and was to set himself up as God on the order of a Greek idol. And so this is what you have with a lot of the events going on, and this is one of the things that the book of Revelation talks about, is emperor worship, and it's not on a sliding scale as a lot of people try to make it to be on a sliding scale. It represents, this is how they look at it, it represents this person now. On down the road, it represents another person. On down the road, you just keep sliding it on forward. That's not the way God operates. But he basically, he says that there's a person who's going to project himself, and we talked about, I think it was Octavia, one of the Caesars, that projected himself, and he wanted a statue of himself to be placed in the temple at Jerusalem, declaring him to be God. And so you don't do it that way. And this happened in about AD 40. And so when you look at things like that, and you look at what was going on at the time that these men wrote, and what they were up against, and the emperor worship was one of the strong suits at this particular time. And when you got into emperor worship, you go from a ruler over man to one who assumes the role as God, and takes himself, places himself in the place of God himself. Do we have any questions or any comments here? Anyone? Okay, the mystery of lawlessness. Chapter 2, verses 6 through 8. We'll find that Paul's warning, he would not and could not give his readers a specific description and instruction. Otherwise, they would have encouraged them to predict the precise date, a date he had said earlier that would come unexpected as a thief in the night, 1 Thessalonians 5:2. So he gives instructions, but he doesn't give a lot of detailed instructions. But in spite of the fact of what he did, there were a number of people who took the ball and started running with it. Speculate. And in essence, he's going to say, those who are speculating and trying to decide what no man knows and that only God knows, you're wasting your time. And you'd be surprised how many people have sat around over a number of months and years, and they've tried to predict when the end of time was going to be. And you can't do that, because the Bible says it's not in your realm to decide or try to figure out. And so Paul instructed in 2 Thessalonians 2 to speak to the church as long as there is a church. And it says, evil will continue to be in the world until the Lord's second appearance. And so we can bank on that. We can count on that it's going to be evil as long as this world exists. Second, a person or persons will appear at regular intervals on the historical stage. People like Napoleon, Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, and we can put a lot more some of the present day people in the same category with that, because they are portraying evil, and they're fitting into Satan's scheme of things. And so as a result, then he says believers should be aware of the temptation to identify the man of sin with a historical figure. You can't do that. Until the Lord returns, men of sin and Antichrist, as John puts it, will continue to appear. And you see this in the book of Revelation, where there's a constant raising of the head of evil as the book progresses. And so it's entirely impossible that the apostle was not warning of a specific person when he wrote about a man of sin, but rather he warned about what was to appear sometime between the writing the letter, and the time when the Lord would bring the present age to a close. And we need to remember that with God, time is not a factor. Time is a factor with man. And it says one day could be as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day in God's way of dealing. One suspect Paul was using, the man of sin, is something of the same way in which John used the many antichrists in 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. In the course of time, many would come who would serve Satan, who would do all within their power to hinder the cause of Christ. And it serves no purpose for the Christian to speculate or speculate on the identity of the man of sin or the Antichrist. The Antichrist, men of sin, who ally themselves with evil one, have always been and will continue to appear in the world until the world is no more. God does not turn the world over to them. Goodness, the influence of God and Christ, hold him back. They restrain the working of evil. The mystery of lawlessness, 2 Thessalonians 2:7, was working at the time that Paul was writing. And the Thessalonian Christians lived. It is still at work today. The Lord's return, this age will come to an end. Goodness will be victorious. And as the centuries have unfolded, evil has sometimes been strong, and in other times it's been a little weak. But when the end comes, Christ will return. And all will be judged. Eternity will begin. And Paul teaches nothing in 2 Thessalonians that he had not taught in his other epistles. And both wise, and it is both unwise and a waste of time to speculate about some individual, whether we may call him an antichrist or a man of sin, who will appear just before the end of the present age. And so all that speculation. We can see the evidence of evil, and we can see that in the lives of men, even in today's world. But the fact is, trying to speculate and say this is the one that Paul was referring to. Now he says evil is going to happen until this world is no more. Do we have any questions or any comments here? Anyone? Unrighteous deception, 9 through 12. it remains true that believers are to live holy lives, ready at any time for him to return. Power, wonder, and lying deceptions are among the tools of Satan at his disposal. The arch enemy of humankind will use unrighteous deception among the ungodly to try to turn people away from the only one that can save them. And those who want to believe the lies of Satan will find God willing to give them a sufficient reason to do so. When you read the book of Romans, there are several times in the first few chapters that it says God gave them over to a reprobate mind. And he says God will send them a strong delusion that they may believe a lie. And so sin and godliness will continue to have their day hundreds of years before Christ. Ezekiel said God would, quote, give statutes that were not good and judgments by which they could not live. Ezekiel chapter 20 and verse 25. The prophet seems to be expressing a thought not far removed from what Paul was talking about here. Do we have any questions here? Yes.
One more, sorry, Gene. At verse 11, God will send delusions well, we learned in another study that there is no delusion or deception in God. So I'm just curious about what the Greek word for sin means. God will allow rather than sin. Just a comment.
Well, when you read the Roman letter here, it says that God will give them up to a reprobate mind. In other words, they will go so far that no matter what anybody says, they're determined they're going to do that. And so when a person has determined they're going to do that, then we'll find that God does allow them to go their way. And so he says they will send a strong delusion. Does that help you any? Okay. Any other comments? Okay. The conclusion here. There's no shortage in existence of those who are willing to speculate about when the Lord will return. And so Paul said his coming would be like a thief in the night. One of the amazing things is the fact that there are people who want to speculate. They read what the Bible says, but they always want to get out there a little bit farther. And God has not given them the lead way to do that. And so they just speculate. And they try to determine what things are going to be like. The best thing for us to do is to stick within the realm of where God has given us the leadway, and where and not try to get out in the territory of where God is, and a lot of the speculation is to that point in time. That I wish that I could have been there at a certain time. Well, you're not there at a certain time, so why try to speculate? And so as results, we'll find that what he says is that no one can predict the time when the Lord will return. Jesus says, I don't know, and only God the Father knows. And when that time comes, Jesus will come. And God will bring with him the ones that are dead will be raised first and meet the Lord in the air, and that we who are alive and left will meet the Lord in the air after being changed, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Jesus will return. The part of his disciples is to be ready whenever that day comes. That's the important thing. Not trying to speculate when it's going to be, not trying to determine what did Paul have in mind here when he talks about the son of perdition or the man of sin. We know that is the tool and in the framework of Satan's realm, in which he is trying to project evil and trying to get people to make a different choice. And so really speculation is of no purpose. Speculation is wasting time, really. When you got a discussion going sometime, and I've heard people say, we had a good discussion. You were speculating, and in the process of speculating, you failed to really use your time well. And so next week we'll look at the next lesson. Okay. Mm-hmm.